Now, moving on to the last part of the course. This is the leadership styles in the organization of the module. And we've covered a couple of these already since we've been discussing about the leadership styles. But I'm just going to recap through it now and let you focus on it. So, with the chapter of the role of leadership in various situations in the organizations, these are areas that the leaders can be able to develop and work around it when it comes across to their organizations and to their staff members. They can be able to develop their leadership styles in the different situations. And the key learning outcomes for this particular area is to analyze these leadership skills in those specific situations, especially when either there are issues in the organization, maybe there's a lot of problems that is going on, and leadership needs to be very, very involved to kind of not only to solve those problems, but at the same time to be there and look at all of the situation to what is actually happening. However, if a company is doing quite well and they are very successful, then leaders will have their chance to kind of think about the future and bring those visions and those skills back to reality. So therefore, the learning outcomes for this particular side is to discuss how leadership styles can be used in the organization, how they can evaluate the functions into these different situations as well. So that's the 3.1 and 3.2. When it comes to the 3.3 and 3.4, is to look at the different organizations functions, which is where you can pick up some examples from real life companies. And here in this particular course, you can research some organizations, especially the big ones, such as Apple and Amazon. They're very, very successful nowadays in the market. And you can look on how they have used their organization's functions to apply this leadership style. And these leadership styles can be very suited for them because they are very successful as a business, which means that the leadership role and the leadership styles that they have used within these organizations are very successful because the company are very expanding and very successful as well. So here we can look at some examples and we can determine areas of focus when it comes across to picking up, conducting some research on existing organizations and how do these organizations use their leadership styles. Leadership development also has a range of different contexts. And again, when we're looking at these companies' examples, we get to see how each of them are evolved in leadership and what do they do so different that make them so successful. Is it a way of motivation? Is it a way of managing? Is it a way of leading? And all of these aspects comes across to handle their staff members and look after them. If you look on Google company, there is a very good video on YouTube, if you get the chance a bit later on. It's discussing about how they motivate their staff members and how they lead them forward. And you can see how lucky those employees working for Google are because they get everything in their campus, from food to laundry to gym to doctor to driving around to sleeping in the campus. So it's like a fun giant house rather than a working environment. And that's a way of how they lead their staff. So every organization again has a specific culture and structure of what makes these companies become so successful. But at the same time, what makes their staff members so happy and so motivated is by the way of management and by the way of leadership that comes across in all of these areas. So it's a very interesting subject. Okay, going back a little bit on the leadership styles. So here we've mentioned autocratic leadership style, we've mentioned democratic leadership style, laissez-faire, bureaucratic, as well as transformational and transactional theories that we've looked at a bit earlier. Each of these styles are again developed by authors who have come across to these styles and have suggested ways on how leadership or how leaders can be able to use them, and they can mix match each of these styles into their either daily activities or depending on what they would like to be achieving. So, for example, with the autocratic one, if the leader wants to get their employees to work quite quickly and achieving the deadlines very, very fast, then they can be able to use the autocratic leadership style because it's a one-way system. If they want to hear everyone's ideas and everyone's opinions about a certain criteria in the organization, then they can use a democratic leadership style where they get everyone involved. They ask them maybe questions, they listen to them, everyone has a say, they can all make the decisions together rather than the leaders kind of coming across. So whenever the leaders can switch and swap or mix and match any of these styles when it comes across to their organizations, and it can be quite useful and flexible to apply throughout to their staff itself. And that's what these authors have suggested about these styles, is to kind of bring them into the different situations and apply them wherever the employees can be determined. So, for example, if we have employees that are low in competence but high in commitment, therefore the leader needs to be directive. Here is a very good example as a model. So you can use different situations with the different leadership styles. So if you see that the employees are not competent, so they are not actually working, they're not very productive, they're not meeting the deadlines, so they're not doing quite a well job, but they are very committed at the same time because they're still committed to learn, they're still committed to do their job. Therefore, the leader can play a role as directing them. It's kind of showing them how to do it, how to manage their task, showing them how to complete the work, or even just have a discussion and have that directiveness to letting them come across and starting at something or doing something. The other example is if employees have some competence, but they are low in commitment now, so their competency is high, which means that they are very productive, they are doing their jobs, they're doing quite well, but their commitment is low, which means that they're not very committed, they're not very there to do things. They do it quite well, but they don't want to do too much of it. Therefore, the leader here can use the coaching style where they can coach them and kind of they can sit down together or have a chat, or simply they can discuss about the amount of work that there is and how much time there is to complete it. And that can be a way of coaching each of those individuals to start and becoming more and more committed. Another example, if employees have a moderate to high competency but may lack commitment now, so here they have a very high competency, but they have no commitment at all. Therefore, they can be supportive. The leader can come across and become very supportive to them. So therefore, they feel that they are part of the organization, they feel that they are motivated, and they feel that the leaders are there to support them and help them in case they need any particular help and support. So they are constant, the leaders now have to constantly support their staff members until their commitment level starts to increase. And the last example here on the table is the highest degree of competence and commitment. So if the highest degree of competence and commitment, so both of them, the staff members are very committed and they are very competency, therefore the leader can play the role as delegating. They can just delegate and share their tasks, they can share their planning, they can share their strategies, whatever they need to be getting it done or achieving that particular task and that particular activity. So they can continue and delegate throughout. And these are some of the examples that can be used in different situations and using a different type of leadership style to kind of help and support that type of a situation. Another example on change and leadership. When it comes across to transformation leadership as an example, we've got here the president of Singapore, which is Lee. I can't pronounce his name properly. So, what he does, he uses a transformed Singapore from a time colonial post to a thriving global economic center. So in Singapore, if you recognize him, he's the president right now. He has used transformational leadership quite a lot throughout his experience because he's moved away from the colonial post towards a more of a global economical center, and he's done very well for it. His name is Lee Kuan Yew, so he's one example of the Singapore's transformation leadership. And that can be quite good in terms of using as a strategy, using as a way of compiling the work together and applying these features. We've got another example over here in the UK. If you think about any UK's leaders, who would you think about? Well, we've got Richard Branson from Virgin Group. The Virgin company is so big and is so global, and they have so many different type of products and services in every sector. For example, the airlines, healthcare, gym, and so and so. And the company is it's so global and so successful that Virgin Group, as a leader, Richard Branson, the owner as well, has become one of the top 10 list of leaders around the world. And of course, there's a couple of more there as well, but as a few examples. Okay, leadership styles, therefore, we've covered a couple of these in terms of what they are and how they can be useful for organizations. And remember that when it comes to the leadership styles or the leadership roles, we all have to focus on what makes a leader be a leader and why is it important to motivate, inspire, and of course, direct and lead those staff members forward. Because that's what makes an organization achieve its goals and makes a company becoming very, very successful. And there are many of these examples that we could be able to learn from this particular module. Overall, therefore, I'm just going to make a short summary. The module has been all about leadership in organizations. We have looked at the various leadership styles, and the chapter focused on those leadership skills and the various situations that those skills can be used in those particular situations. You have now the knowledge regards the way that organizational objectives can influence the leadership choice. For example, when it comes to making a quick decision, then a democratic leader, as an example, would be a very useful one. An autocratic leadership will be a very useful one because they can make a quick decision on it. If they need to use a more sort of involvement from their staff and they need to interact more with their employees, then they can apply as a democratic leadership style. So therefore, everyone can get more involved and have a say in those requirements. When it comes across to the leadership styles that we've been discussing, these again, they function in different ways across the companies. And depending on what the company again would like to be achieving or fulfilling with the leaders itself. Some of these are covered by leadership as a skill that needs to be developed. Others they say that leadership development methods have been proven to be very effective. So people that are born leaders, but with hard work and persistence, they can become a great leader as well. So there's been that little bit of a debate over whether if leaders are born or rather if leaders are self-made. And overall, looking at all of these leadership styles, remember that the main key focus are democratic, autocratic, laissez-faire, bureaucratic as a type of a leadership style. Then also think about what makes a leader be a leader. So the leadership skills and the leadership characteristics, and you can pick up some examples on who is a leader and what makes a leader be a leader. And you can always look through the leadership theories that we've been mentioning. Some of these leadership theories can be applied in current organizations through the different situations, again, depending on what the situation is arising in that company. So we've mentioned about the great man theory, transformational theory, transactional theory, contingency theory, as well as situational theory. And there's a couple of more that can be able to look through the leadership theories. So we've covered with the module now. I hope you found this very interesting when we've discussed about leadership in organizations and what makes a leader be a leader. And I wish you all the very best. And don't forget to do your research to learn more about leadership styles and leadership theories. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Goodbye for now.